Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Burner Tuner, and today we're working on the Tundra actually. As you can see, the headlights that are on this thing are pretty faded and yellow. These are the ones that came with the truck. They're an aftermarket set. I think I looked them up at one point, but I don't remember what brand they are. The design is somewhat nice looking, but they're just super faded and pretty worn out looking. And actually the sockets in the back where the bulbs go in and out of are really worn out for some reason. I guess it's just kind of cheap back there. So I'd recently just put in some LED bulbs into these things. I didn't make a video on it, but the HIDs that were in this were really intermittent, and that side eventually just stopped working entirely. So I just put LED bulbs in. Now the funny thing is, I got an email a few weeks back asking me about asking me if I was interested in some new Tundra headlights, and yeah, I mean, how can you say no to that? So this company, Autosaver88 on Amazon is their company name. They reached out and asked if I would be interested in testing out some of their headlights. So full disclosure, they provided these headlights to me for free. I didn't pay anything, including shipping. So I'm going to try to be as unbiased as I can here. Now, a product like this, they're probably going to work great out of the gate. So I'll probably have very positive things to say initially, but it's down the line where we kind of see the quality of something like this and how they wear, how they might fade in the sun, if they let water into the housings and not. So I'll try to give an update down the line, but initially they're probably going to be pretty nice, so that's what we can expect. So let's go ahead and show you what headlights we're looking at installing today. Alright, so upon opening the box here, let's get this fully open here. You will see that we've got our two headlight units here, and man, they look pretty nice right out of the gate. Of course, they are brand new, like I was saying, so they're going to look pretty good. And, oh man, those are just glossy as can be. I forget what new headlights look like. All mine are all just dingy as can be. So let's seal that back up. And take a look at the back here. So we can see it's got standard, I think that's an H7 type bulb plug-in here. So this will just work with our factory wiring setup. Now, some of the reviews, I went ahead and just scoped this out and took a look at it preliminarily, and it looks like some people complain about the quality of the bulbs in here. That's not going to be so much an issue for me. I'm going to pop these guys out and throw the LED ones I have in. So I will not be talking about those so much because I want something LED, and I believe these are just halogen bulbs in here. So we'll swap those out. Still retain that same connector style. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different than the other headlights and some of the other offerings you might find. These are our wiring for the DRLs that are in here. You can see these LED tubes here. So those are going to be daytime running lights. Of course, you can choose to not wire those in, but you can also choose to abstain. So I don't know. So let's pull these out of here. In here we will find, looks like some care and use instructions. Okay, shows you how to kind of, oh, it actually gives you instructions as well too. I wasn't sure they would. So they will provide you with the instructions here, and looks like they give you a nice pair of little white working gloves as well too. These are tiny, but I guess they'll work. And looks like that is about it for these. So I also picked up a few other things I looked up for this install, so I'm going to show you what I picked up for that as well too. You'll want to get some wire splice ins. Now these are a bulk one from Amazon. They were cheap, so I bought those, but you can pick those up at AutoZone, O'Reilly's, Advance Auto, any one of those. I believe we're going to be using this red one. I think that's 18 to 22 gauge wire. You will want to grab one of these. It's for the Tundra, it's an ATM low profile. That's what the LP stands for. It's a low profile type ATM fuse, and what this does, as you can see, is it's going to go into the fuse box there and allow us a provision to add another fuse entirely and then run that to our headlights So I want to grab one of these guys. And you'll want to grab, you know, you might already have one in your Tundra, you know, as a spare, but you want to grab one of these low profile fuses to throw in there as well too. This is just a variety pack. We're going to go ahead and use a 5 amp that's in there. I mocked up this really rudimentary drawing, and I'll put this in the link for the description as well too, just to give you an idea of how the routing is going to go. Alright, let's go ahead and start by taking off these 2 top mounting bolts here. Okay, now secure those somewhere. Now down here on the bottom of the headlight, there are 2 plastic trim anchors, so you want to get a plastic removal tool, or you know, you can use a flathead, but just you know, try not to break it. Pop those up, and then pry those out. Now this part can be a little bit scary because you can run the risk of breaking the plastic tab that's behind here, but essentially it just comes straight out this way. You want to try to pull it, you know, at a straight angle. Don't angle it because you're going to bend the pin that's behind there. So what I like to do is take one of those trim removal tools and get back there and just kind of pry it just a little bit. Then grab that and yeah, just try to pry this out straight. Oh, I hate doing this. I managed not to break those, so thank God. But you can see that's what those pins look like, and they're really easy to break. So just be careful. And then there's a bolt here that goes into the headlight that you need to remove. 10 mil also. Okay, and now that all those 10 mils are out, we're going to go ahead and lift up on the tabs here to get them over the screw mounts there, the bolt mounts, and then you're going to pull this away from the body and make sure to unscrew your connectors for your bulbs. I should have done that first. And then it just comes straight out just like that. The coloring on these, and there's all sorts of spider webbing going on. You know, I guess you could potentially restore these, but I tried it, you know, when I first got it, and they just never were really that good. I probably would have to take it off and do it from the inside, but just not exactly worth bothering with. Okay, and now we'll just do that same thing over here. Yeah, and you can see one of these was snapped off previously, so I've learned how to do this better, but yeah, just be careful with these. Yeah, on this side I find it easier to actually pull it forward just a little bit and then disconnect everything because it's so tight with that reservoir there. And in this case I have my LED, not ballasts, I forget what they are, but those are double-sided to the actual housing, so I'm going to have to relocate those to the new ones. Okay, there's the other one. And you can see on this one I had that electrical tape like I was talking about because the grooves in here are really worn out and the headlight kind of wobbles. Yeah, and these gaskets are in really bad shape here too, so it's time for a replacement on these things. They're just in pretty rough shape overall. Alright, now I should have done this earlier, but I'm going to disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. Okay, now that that's done, let's go ahead and take off our fuse box here. And you'll notice that this thing is labeled under here. So what we're looking for is actually our ignition fuse, which is all the way over on the right hand bottom side on the top row there, labeled a 10 amp. So what we're going to do here is take our little fuse puller tool over here, and you can use some pliers if you don't have these. Go ahead and pull that 10 amp, and let's just set that aside for a moment. We're going to take our little add a fuse here. So now that you've got your add a fuse here, you're going to go ahead and throw that old fuse back in there. So the 10 amp in this case. Put that up front there. Okay, we've added our 10 amp there. And then I think I said 5 amp earlier in the video, but we're going to go ahead and throw another 10 amp in there as well too. Just make sure that these get seated in there. Okay, now that we've got both of our fuses added back in there, let's go ahead and put this into the fuse box, and I'm going to orient it so that it's not covering any of the existing fuses, rather it's just over the empty slot. And then we can begin our wiring work here. Now, there's already some terrible wiring here from the previous owner, so don't worry about that. It's just something messy I need to clean up. Alright, so before we get into the wiring though, I do need to convert these over to my LEDs that I already have. So yeah, it's going to just require taking off these little light assemblies here. Now I just popped the bulb out here and I'm realizing that the setup they have is totally different than, you know, like a factory bulb would slot in there with like the 3 grooves, the 3 slotted areas that you would slide the bulb in. It's got this weird little, I don't know, this connector style one. I've never seen one like that. So I'm taking a look at it here, and I don't think I'm going to be able to make my LEDs work with this, which is really unfortunate unless I just, you know, somehow can secure them in there with like tape or something, but I really don't want to do that, of course. So this is going to be interesting. So I'm not thrilled about that. I cannot make my LEDs work with that. I was really assuming that it would just be a standard headlight connector, you know, like the H7 style that have those 3 slots. So yeah, a little disappointing on that. But I think I still want to try installing these anyways, and we can always take these off and replace them. But let's go ahead and just press on and install these things and see how they look. Alright, so here's how we're going to do it. Alright, so we need to get these 2 connections down to 1. So what we're going to do is take one of these little wire connectors here. We're going to run one through, and then the other is actually slightly shorter, so we're going to get that other one. It's going to just remain inside that housing there. We're going to keep it in there because we don't need that. Alright, so once both wires are in there, push down on this connector here, all the way down. It can be a little tough. Okay, there we go. One connector on. So we've merged those 2 into one here. And that's going to run to that fuse box. Now, we need to be able to connect into the other 2 wires as well too. So what I'm going to do is add another one on each side, on each wire connector, to run over to the other 2 on the other headlight, because, you know, we need these things all tied into the same circuit here. By the way, I'm just kind of formulating this plan myself. There's no real instructions or write-up on doing this, so at least not that I'm aware of. Okay, now for each side, I just want to run a ground directly to the chassis for each side, somewhere quick that we can remove if we need to. I'm not going to tie in one headlight to the other. So I don't have the right size ring terminal that I want to use in order to get this to ground on the chassis. So what I'm going to do is pull back some of this wiring here, remove some of this sleeve, Take a little more off there. We're going to double this back on itself and give us more area to work with there. Just make sure that those wires are nice and tidy, and then we're going to run this into our terminal here. And go ahead and crimp this end down. Okay, there we go. We've got our ring terminal here. So we're done with this side for the moment. Alright, so I want everything to be able to quick disconnect, you know, if I have to remove the headlights. So we're going to wire in some spade connectors. So I went ahead and pulled off that add a fuse connector, and I'm going to add a spade connector here. We just need a little bit of line here. Go ahead and cut this guy. Okay, so that's going to look like that, and then we're going to take our spade connector here and put that through, crimp that on. Okay, so now you should have a spade connector on your little add a fuse. And then taking our merged power source from the headlight, we are going to add a spade connector on here as well. I'm going to trim this wire because it's a little bit lengthy. Crimp that connection down. Right, now we should be able to have a spade connector that plugs into the add a fuse, and that way we can do a quick disconnect if we need to, while still leaving that ignition fuse in place. Right, so now that we've got the setup figured out on this side, let's go ahead and test it out before we move on to the other side. I gotta say, those look pretty good on the car, but let's test out the actual lights, because I'm not going to be in love with going back to halogen lights instead of LEDs, so let's just go ahead and take a look at that as well. And also I should note that these do come on with the ignition, so that's good. Okay, headlight works, low beams. Alright, so let's go ahead and disconnect the battery again here. Now I'm going to pull these headlights out just a little bit so we can work with the wires back here. Alright, so you'll notice there's some yellow wire here. I just had to extend the wires from the other side. That length of red wire I had wasn't enough, but just imagine that this is going to the other power lights on the DRLs on the right side headlight, passenger side. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in the wire taps now, and then close those up. This might be a little hard to film. I've got the wire from the other headlight now coming into the wire tap from this headlight, which goes to the fuse source up there. Okay, now we've got the left side tied into the right side here, and that goes to our fuse. Okay, now with that side mocked up with the temporary ground, let's go ahead and test the DRLs and just see if all four of them work. Let me find out what I did wrong here.
Boy, if you don't...
Why? Why that one? Alright, so I believe the issue was that some of those splice connectors, I actually did need to strip the ends of the wires to make more contact inside there because it wasn't actually going through the insulation of the wire. So let's go try this out and see if that works.
Wow.
Awesome. Okay. There we go. The rest of it is factory. So we'll just plug those lights in and then tidy up the wiring. I've got to finish this up tomorrow because it's getting kind of late, so I'm going to go ahead and just finish that tomorrow. Let's close out for now. Alright guys, so we're here to finish this thing up today. All we need to do is tidy up the wiring. So I'm going to go ahead and just put some wire sleeving on. That's going to clean it up and make it look a bit more OEM. And then I'm going to try to run it from this side underneath the core support here all the way to the other side, and just kind of blend this stuff in and make it look as OEM as possible and ensure that this stuff is going to last for quite a while. So let's go ahead and start on that. So if you're wondering why I left the protective lenses on each side, it's to prevent scratches while installation, but also we're doing one more thing before this job is complete. Let me explain. So if you guys follow the channel and have been watching a while, you'll remember that I applied Armor Shield 9 by Avalon King to the Ducati Scrambler Desert sled back when that was new, and I want to do the same thing with these headlights. My concern is with headlights, especially more affordable options, if you know what I mean, that the UV resistance isn't going to be great, and they're going to yellow up over time pretty quickly. So I want to take an extra step and apply this stuff. This will protect it from dirt and grime and just all sorts of road debris, and make it easier to clean. But it's also going to give it a little bit more UV protection than if we didn't apply anything at all. So that's partially why I've left these covers on, but we're going to go ahead and take those off and then just spray it down with alcohol and apply this stuff. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up the install. I am pretty happy with the way that this turned out. The fitment is spot on for these. There was no really like manipulation that I had to kind of mess with to get these things to fit up okay. And as you can see, the beam pattern that this thing throws is actually pretty good. I'm actually quite surprised at how bright it is for you know, normal halogen bulbs. And that brings me to the one issue that I really have with these, and it's that it uses a bulb type that I've never seen. I don't know you know, what fitment that is for, but I can't use my old LEDs, and I wish these were at least LEDs or a normal H7 pattern so I could throw my old ones back in. But I gotta say, I do love the way that these look and the way that they refreshed the front end of this truck. It looks so much cleaner, so much more modern. It just really lifts the entire car. So I think this was a fantastic mod. I do actually have another mod on the way for this to kind of, you know, spruce the truck up just a little bit more and bring it a bit more into you know, the modern times. So be on the lookout for that episode. Thank you guys so much for watching though. We really appreciate all you guys that tune in and watch our videos. A large number of you are not subscribed though, so I would like to ask, if you guys enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing down below. And as always, thank you for watching.